Business or pleasure?
Business.
Pleasure. Business or pleasure?
Business.
Pleasure. So haben wir uns hergefunden.
Zieh nicht weg. Nie wegsehen, Gott. Alles, was wahr ist, ist schön.
Gestern führte mein Leben in eine Richtung. Heute führt es in eine andere.
Es ist viel zu leicht, dich zu leben. Ich werde dich nie mehr allein lassen.
Das Haus der schönen Dinge soll ihr Zuhause sein.
Ich bin so froh, dass Sie hier sind.
Darf ich dich was fragen?
Ja, natürlich.
Bist du eine Hexe?
Sei schön brav, Sputnik, und mach, was Fritzi sagt.
Nimmt es schon auf?
Es ist, als stünde die Zeit für einen Augenblick still.
Sie sagen doch, wie sollen wir Juristen denken? Was wollen wir hier erreichen?
Wir versuchen nur, es zu verstehen.
Muss denn immer alles so kompliziert sein?
Ich glaube, dass ich das war.
Ach du Scheiße. Ich hab euch das gesagt. Ich hab euch das gesagt.
Ich brauche 8 Soldaten. Wir haben nur eine Aufgabe, eine einzige. Nazis töten. Klingt das gut? Jawohl, Sir!
Bist du nicht ein bisschen alt dafür?
Ja.
Alles klar, Jungs? Was wollen wir machen?
Zuerst was zum Kiffen haben.
Klingt da noch ein Plan oder nicht?
Die Polizei ist hier. Sag ihnen, ich bin gleich da.
Es gibt Dinge im Leben, vor denen kann man nicht davonlaufen.
Ich guck einfach so lange in den Spiegel, bis ich mir mein Leben glaube.
the saddest rest. You will find me.
It's been like a little rhythm in my life coming to Berlin. It's a magical and extraordinary city.
Faszinierende Location.
The vibrancy of the city kind of takes my breath away.
Was ist denn jetzt das Schönste in Berlin?
Soul, deep soul. It has a great vibe and I feel very much at home here.
Berlin war immer mein Traum.
That's my kind of city. I love it.
It's really wild. I was staying like right down the street a year ago filming this movie.
Kraftwerk in Kreuzberg. Diese gigantischen Hallen. Das war schon abgefahren.
Was ich suche, sind Stars.
Action.
It is a place you sort of need to stick at it and get underneath its skin to really feel the pulse of it.
It's been great. I know these studios, which has been really cool.
Exacto mundo.
Berlin brings it all. You can shoot everything here.
Das ist gut.
Das mag ich, dass man diese kompletten Kontraste hier finden kann. Finde ich cool.
Immer bereit.
Over the last 30 years, round became square. Small became big, and small and big, and smaller and bigger. From a classic fairy tale, we flew into an exciting reality, discovering a world of possibilities. We've learned and we've loved. We still learn and we still love. Together, we have shaped the culture of today, and we keep on building, creating, and growing. Through the tough, the rough, and the many challenges, always supporting, encouraging, enriching each other. So that square can become any shape, and small can become so much smaller when we realize how big it really is. 30 years of support, and we keep going, because you are building the culture of tomorrow. Your stories are meant to be shared.
Creating great things out of nothing takes passion and hard work. No creative process is ever linear. On top of all the long nights and rewrites, you still have to stay on schedule, on brief, and on budget. And making every little detail come together takes planning. That's what Yamdu is for, the end-to-end project management tool for the creative industries. From the first draft to the final cut, Yamdu is the central platform for all crew members, each individual involved getting complete oversight over their unique roles and responsibilities. It's the only management tool you'll ever need. Yamdu is your partner from development to planning to post-production and beyond. It takes great passion to create, but it takes great planning to produce. Let Yamdu provide you with a framework for your next big project.
Good morning. Great, I think you had your coffee. So good morning, everyone. My name is Sten Saluveer. I'm the CEO of Storytech Innovation and Venture Studios, as well as the head of Cannes Next at the Marché du Film Festival de Cannes. And thanks for coming to CresCine's Key Industry Insights and Trends and our Tallinn Outlook 2024. So if you remember, we were here a year ago with this fascinating project, CresCine, which is set to give you industry-leading insights into different facets of how small European markets are doing. And the role, of course, with this amazing project has to go out to different markets, to talk to industry people such as you, gather feedback, look at every single data source out there in different types of verticals, and which verticals they are, I'll show you a little bit later, and then actually gather them in a very unique partnership between academics as well as industry organizations for help you to make better decisions. As some of you know me, I'm quite obsessed with slides. So I only have 80 slides for you today to go through in 45 minutes. There will be a short Slido quiz later, no jokes aside. You'll get the slides later, but the whole point of this is please do interact with us as much as possible. There are some of the colleagues from CresCine here as well. I see Ulrike. Who else is here? Hands up. Oh, great. Marga and some others as well. The CresCine team here is at the industry at Tallinn throughout the whole day. So go find them, go talk to them. We are facing quite a lot of, I would say, transformational issues right now in the industry, and it's our role to work out those together. And I think great insights can power great pragmatic decisions as well. So what are we going to talk about in the next 45 minutes or so? So why film professionals need to look trends at all, why we just couldn't keep producing and distributing and selling and etc. What is the big picture that we've seen, or I have seen in the industry, both in different perspectives in 2024? We are in the middle of a certain type of a poly crisis and what exactly it means. I would like to kind of very provocatively claim that in many ways it's not anymore about you or us as the producers or creators, but it's more and more about the audience. What's going on at the European markets? We launched in the beginning of the year and in big way in Cannes a report called Small European Markets. If you haven't yet seen this report, this is going to be very, very helpful for you to make your ecosystem production and distribution decisions. We'll also look a little bit and give you a preview of what we found out in our extended skill study. And finally, where's the opportunity and how you can benefit from us. So let's get going. So for those of you who haven't been us before, CresCine is a 3-year Horizon Europe funded project, and we're developing industry-leading insights into the state and competitiveness of small European film markets. We're looking into Lithuania, Estonia, Ireland, Portugal, Denmark, Flanders, and Croatia. But we think that Europe is all about small film markets, and I think we can make some great generalizations based on what we found over there. We bring together leading European institutions such as University of Lusofona, Aarhus, VUB, U Tallinn, and others, as well as industry players, including the European Film Academy, March to Film, the Black Nights Film Festival, Industry Tallinn, and many others. And what we basically do frequently is that we are developing and publishing those insights into different elements of the European film industry, whether it's about funding and financing, state of market, screening and sustainability, financing, COVID impact, distribution, audiences, innovation, and many, many other things as well. And we do publish those things quite frequently in our Industry Insights newsletter, which you can grab at LinkedIn as well as at major markets as well. Here's our website. I'll give you a QR code later so you can kind of dive into the data as well. And here's our consortium and the partners that are working with this project. So if you have been kind of following us for the sort of past year and a half, then where are we right now after 18 months? So we've done the first European skill study, which was also premiered Tallinn a year ago. It has created quite a bit of a firestorm in a glass about the state of European skills in many, many ways. But I think that's also the whole idea, to spark the dialogue, especially, as you know, in the current political situation where a new European Commission will be instigated within a few months. In January, we should have the Commission, some types of new policies in place, and how exactly our industry support schemes, policy schemes at European level, regional level, and national level are going to play out. This is the kind of the most hottest time where those debates and discussions should happen. We published our small markets analysis report, also that was released in Cannes In Cannes, we had many really interesting sessions on future of financing. There were 3 dedicated sessions looking at from investors' perspective, from producers' perspective, and etc. The videos are again available on our LinkedIn page. And we've also put together the new skills report, which you will actually see some of the first results today. So a little world premiere as well. There's a lot of things to come. In next year, we're going to launch something which is now being developed in Tallinn, which is called FIDA, or the Film Industry Database. This is going to be a kind of a predictive benchmarking tool on the correlations of financing and distribution. So imagine something that Netflix and everybody else already has internally. So you can start seeing how films travel in festivals, what's the performance, and so forth. We're going to work very extensively on our greening and sustainability matters. Tobias is over there, has done amazing work on greening and sustainability. What I can already say is that I think we're really transcending from a perspective of just having handbooks. Everyone's familiar with their own kind of national handbook, and the more pressing questions what are happening right now in the environment is like, what types of collaborations are you doing in this greening, in this kind of greening era? Because we don't need any more prescriptive stuff. We kind of need to figure out how to actually produce things. If you are a producer, you're interested in greening and sustainability, and you want to run a pilot with us, because we're aiming to do co-production-driven pilots, and incentivize producers who are going into greening and sustainability, come and talk to us as well. There's going to be audience benchmarking tools, and there is continuing studies on audiences. Our colleagues in Portugal are looking into very interesting audience personas dashboard. Audience is everything, so have a look at them as well. There are pilots with producers, with our Producers Club. I see Marta over there. And there's going to be more of industry insights coming as. What did I miss? Sounds good. So hey, why do film producers need to look at trends? Question to you. Let's just keep doing things as we are. Well, so Amy Webb, and that's purely my own take, and hopefully it's useful for you. So Amy Webb, who is a very celebrated futurist, she every year opens the South by Southwest with her keynote. It's always super oversubscribed, either online and on site. And her Future Today Institute has sort of proposed this trends cone. And what she means is that we can kind of segment our life to sort of minimum of 3 levels. So everything what we need to deal now, which is like 6 months to 1 year, we have a kind of a 2 to 3 year horizon, which is the tactical horizon where you need to kind of scan for the relevant trends for you. And then we have everything 3 to 5 years, which is a strategic perspective. We all know that, you know, making a film or a TV series minimum takes 2 to 3 years. You put your funding applications in, you do script development, and then you hopefully get it funded and co-produced and then released. But the reality, obviously, is that when your content is going to be ready, 2 or 3 years will pass. So, of course, our whole environment where you are releasing the films will change as well. You know, it might be a totally different type of financial situation, a societal situation. There might be things coming on from healthcare or public health issues. Well, look what COVID did to us. It has very profoundly shaped our environment. There might be some political changes. Well, I can take some... if Werner Herzog ate his shoe, and maybe I will go and eat my shoelaces, but it's definitely clear that with the political changes in the United States, the platforms are going to get much more aggressive. They will be deregulated, and we have to kind of anticipate, for example, what the streaming and platform landscape, especially AI landscape, will be in 2 to 3 years. Otherwise, you're basically shooting arrows into a dark. So I think it's very helpful for producers to have a little bit of a keen eye, or if you call it a radar, a producer or a film industry radar, where you're kind of beaming into the future, looking at the present like data and markers, and trying to kind of figure out, hey, where exactly is my film going to land in terms of financing, distribution, festivals, audiences, and innovation, and all those aspects that we're looking at CresCine. So I would probably say is that, and what I've learned myself in a very hard way, is that for your content in production, it's the future, not what is now. This is primarily important. Of course, in now you have to produce it, but you kind of have to think about where exactly is your film landing, how you're going to distribute it, and ultimately how you're going to make money, because we also need to survive. Well, I think from my point of view, hence, to stay competitive, especially in small markets, everyone, producers, festivals, decision makers, must future-proof by understanding the trends. So what are the kind of the trends that been taking our industry in 2024? And now comes an awfully depressing talk, which all of you know very well. But some of the markers, what I've seen, and both from a kind of a CresCine lens and Cannes lens and elsewhere, is the fact that we're still in kind of a post-COVID era where digitalization is accelerating. We all know about the SAG crash, that how the US industry was halted for almost 6 months, and things generally are tough for everyone. The US strikes are having a tremendous impact globally, really from various levels. Has anyone read the SAG AI white paper? Okay, I highly recommend to read that. The guidelines that SAG put out from the strikes, those are pretty much de facto going to define what will happen to generative AI and co-productions and all of the aspects that you're going to do now. It's a kind of a Bible. It will be negotiated again in a few years, but it's going to set a lot of terminology, a lot of industry practice, and etc. So the US industry is definitely going to coagulate around that as well. Financing and funding gets increasingly more difficult. I guess we can agree that in the next European Commission term, we will have significantly less money because the economic climate is what it is. Ukraine will be very fully eligible for European funding as such. The Draghi report very blatantly set out that countries need to invest in defense and competitiveness, etc. So we have to kind of start figuring out how do we move this relatively well-published and funded environment into a more competitive environment. What is really important, and what I've seen at South by Southwest, is that the talent agencies, especially in the US, they are becoming really studios. They control the talent, they control the content, they aim to control the distribution, and etc. So a lot of industry aggregation is going towards the talent agencies. And obviously, we have a huge content flood. Sundance had around 17,000 submissions this year, together with short films. I'm just wondering who had a chance to watch all of those films. AI. I haven't asked the Sundance team, but you know the reality there is that there's so much content produced that how do you actually kind of get your film seen in that content flood? It's a very tough sell. Javier, yes? Yeah. Great. I mean, this is what we saw in Cannes. And as if you've seen the news, especially from the States, it's a time of layoffs and bankruptcies. We all remember when Participant Media said in March that they are closed. They were closing because it's very hard to find the marketplace. We've had a similar situation in Europe as well. And everything of this has happened in the 6 months. So I think collectively we can coin this as a term of a polycrisis where we have different things going on. We have AI, we have the changing European landscape, we have the changing US landscape, audience-centric models, and etc. And all of those things are like boom, happening same time. Exactly 10 years ago in Tallinn, we talked about the digital single market, which created a lot of drama at the same time, at the time. Well, right now we are in many ways de facto in that single market, which pretty much is dominated by platforms, but the feeling of anxiety and where should we go forward has some types of parallels. We are in the middle of a total content overproduction. I highly recommend you to check out Activate Consult's 2025 Key Industry Trends. It was released about 2 weeks ago. Well, it turns out to be that US media consumers are multitasking quite a lot. They are spending 32 hours a day with technology and media. So how is that possible? Where's the math? Yeah, screen over screen. You're listening to a podcast and Netflix is playing. You're like chatting with your friends and etc. Well, when we take this multitasking away, by the way, not my numbers, Activate's numbers, it's about 7 hours with audio and video. So 1/3 of the day, it's increasing. So if, you know, into that 1/3 of a day, there is the independent film produced by Marit's talents, and then there is Netflix and streaming and podcasts and etc. Like, again, how is your film going to get into that 7 hours? Because there's just so ridiculously so much choice. Americans have right now 5.8 subscriptions by average per household. So the subscription fatigue is going to kick in. Streaming is far from profitable. I think Reed Hastings said in his New York Times op-ed that he thinks that maybe there could be 3 profitable streamers. Netflix is very keen to get their stock, get a good value from the stock, but the reality is that most of the big streamers are also losing money. fast, or advertising supported streaming is growing very fast, but you need to have a really large classic library in order to make money from there. Self-distribution is becoming quite critical, or understanding how to self-distribute. Google will be launching some distribution tools either this year or early next year. And what's really interesting is that Gen Z actually loves classic film. It turns out to be that films produced in early 2000s, which feel yesterday, are already classics. So come and kind of go and get your classic films like remastered and reels as well. But I think what we all are is that nobody really knows that there is no clear future win-win ahead. So we're all kind of exactly at the same situation. That's a really interesting slide from Evan Shapiro. He's a media cartographer, mostly focusing on streaming and other type of content. But he's also a former film executive at IFC. If you don't read his Substack, do. There is a lot of great insights, including his LinkedIn as well. These are the kind of the must-have media sources right now for American customers. Well, where's Netflix, right? quite below. Everything is getting aggregated around those really big platforms, whether it's around Spotify, whether it's about YouTube Premium. YouTube Premium is seeing a lot of growth right now, primarily because people are tired of ads and they want to pay the $10 to get that free content pool, and then everything comes else. By 2026, YouTube will have 2.6 billion monthly customers. That's 1/3 of the world's population. And if you start kind of figuring out where the competition and where the opportunity really lies, by the way, I'm not affiliated with Google in any way, but I'm just giving you the fact to understand how the distribution and consumer access landscape is changing. And that comes from Doug Shapiro. Doug is a very well-known media strategist and worked also with Time Warner. And that's a quote from Doug, where Doug, in one of his recent reports, said that YouTube is already 11% viewing on TVs. So more than 10% of YouTube is kind of viewed on smart TV. By the way, the Activate report last year showed that about 42% of American audiences don't care. 42% of audiences would love to have the film premieres in their home on a smart TV. This year they didn't release that, but it's going to be roughly 50-50. So the reality is that your next production will be premiering at home, and primarily on the smart TV environment, people are more and more tuning into YouTube. Social video is about 25% of all video consumption right now. Massive. A kind of a trend that we really cannot ignore. And if you really start looking at the numbers and thinking, where's your priority? There's about 500 hours of content uploaded to YouTube every minute. 500 hours of content uploaded to YouTube every minute. The Commission themselves have said repeatedly in the media outlook that it takes about 300 years to watch all European films for one European audience member on their platform. And what I also want to kind of imply is that this classical idea of differentiating between professional film industry and those called YouTubers, those kids on the YouTube, right? Nothing interesting there, cat pictures, no content, nothing interest. I'm a bit provocative here. Well, it turns out to be that one of the most successful documentaries from recent history from France, it actually comes from a French YouTuber, a sort of Mr. Beast of YouTube. So he basically decided, this is a very provocative but a very famous story from recent history later this year. So he basically decided to climb Everest. He kind of disappeared, didn't do any type of content, went to climb Everest, summited, and made a documentary. And he basically decided to release that documentary in cinemas. In 2 days, this film got 310,000 admissions. 2 days. He later released it on YouTube, that got 11 million views. So this kind of a whole idea that you here in a hall have like access to great equipment and you're so well trained and etc. Actually, this is not going to matter. There are people coming from that new type of environment who have their resources, they have the skills, and most primarily they have the audience, and they're coming into your turf. I think this is going to be a very major question what you have to ask yourself, how you as a filmmaker or how you as a policymaker or a festival manager or whatever will be able to kind of differentiate in that situation where access to capital, access to professional equipment, and to a professional distribution situation doesn't really matter. 310,000 admissions in 2 days. And trust me, there is going to be more and more of these kinds of cases. I think Laimonas will talk more about the Lithuanian case, which they actually decided to finance. a kind of a YouTube film, if you will, later at the European Film Forum, which starts today at 1 o'clock in Kultuurikatel. So interesting times. So my very good friend Ezra Eman, who used to be the chief strategist at EBU and now is at NPO. So like a few weeks ago, he put out this slide. And I think that slide will describe the situation of the film industry very profoundly. So where we are right now, thanks to technology and capital and the kind of a prosumer landscape, is we will have endless creation. We will have endless distribution because the platforms are endlessly scalable, whether in here or globally. But the problem that we're all facing is limited attention. That there will be so much content available, but again, how are you being relevant? How is your content sticking out where there's only 24 hours per day? So Elon, of course, wants to sell us his Neuralink, and when we all have it, then obviously we might be able to watch more films of real time, but until that, this is something that we all have to very seriously think about. So, how it used to be was really a great time because we had all kinds of small companies of public financiers and producers and sales agents and marketing managers and festivals and exhibitors and etc. And I'm going to make quite a bold prediction that thanks to AI tools very soon, a lot of this industry is going to be all kinds of creators. They are powered by those cheap AI power tools. Platforms will take quite a lot of attention through their algorithmically curated feeds. And personalized feeds, and you're able to distribute to global audiences. Both YouTube and Spotify have already in beta opportunities to basically dub into major languages in the world in real time. So it's going to be you, but you will have real-time dubbing into any type of a language. So potentially you can actually access the largest audience in the world. And then add artificial intelligence. Things are going to get even better. Well, if you think that AI is going to go away, probably not. And this is just a little market map of all kinds of tools that are available. This was released by Sequoia, and I can tell you that this AI evolution or revolution happens every week. Every week there is something new coming out, a tool, a platform for writers, post-production, and etc. Literally, this space is evolving by minutes. So Sequoia Capital, which is a very well-known Silicon Valley investment firm, so they basically released 2 years ago a report said, oh, maybe in 2024 we're going to have some maybe first tests of audio and video. Well, they knew what they said about a month ago was that we've gone really from a big bang to a primordial soup. So I'm going to give you everything, and we're running right now a great program in the National Film School on trying to do a mini MBA for AI. Sort of in real time. But I'm just going to give you a little bit what has happened in the past little less than 12 months. So this has all happened in 12 months. So first of all, OpenAI raised one of the highest investment rounds ever, 6.6 billion. That's about half of Estonia's annual state budget. And those guys are going to grow and build fast. Curious Refuge, which you might have come across, they basically launched their world's first training program. They've already trained 5,000 film professionals across the globe, and they are growing even faster. They have now programs for documentary, animation, marketing, any type of a vertical, what you want to do. Well, a few months ago, Lionsgate actually made a deal with Runway. So Lionsgate is going to give their library to Runway to train models so that they have faster green lighting. Paramount actually launched in South by Southwest that they will start creating animation through legacy models. SpongeBob is going to be the first one, but they're going to have fully generated content. Puchon Film Festival in summer held a kind of a big AI film competition where they actually had a competition for AI-generated films as a part of a major competition. This is a big thing. Of course, many AI film festivals around the world, thousands of AI short films produced. We had the first strike in the US with the SAG. Probably something like this is coming in Europe too. We have an AI Act, which seemingly protects our customers, but has a lot of issues around it with the fact that only big companies are able to comply. So where is this European AI creativity coming from? All big productions use AI with no fuzz. We also have an AI lab at the industry at Tallinn. Reese Beecher did a workshop yesterday. They did a lot of voice work, for example, for Emilia Perez. Great film by Jacques Audiard. I hope some of you have seen it. I'm not going to tell you where the AI was used, but it was used quite extensively, and that film played in Cannes and nobody cared about anything. The tools are growing like mushrooms. Well, go and see what I showed you there. And what is really fascinating is that if you know how to use AI director and AI artist is a job. This is where we've gone from 12 months. If you're great at prompting and doing AI content, you can get hired like on a second. People go straight out of Caleb and Shelby's course to big studios. That has happened in like little less than a year. It's gonna get faster. I'm not gonna play you the clip for the sake of time, but there are also really interesting studios emerging which are having European creativity at its core, but basically reimagining what AI can do. So Fuzzlet is an IP from a company called Mini Studio. They also presented last year here that they said, oh, we have a vision of starting to build kids IP. Basically what they do is that they produce socially responsible content out of Europe with like psychologists, great screenwriters, and everybody else for an age segment of 2 to 5. But they use AI to optimize their pipeline. They're able to produce right now 10 minutes of broadcast animation in 1 week. Full broadcast animation with storytelling, character animation, sound, post-production, music, and everything. They launched in March. They have 300,000 followers right now on Instagram and about 20 million views, and recently raised a round. It's an example where like new companies are able to come into very classical verticals, understanding how the pipelines work, and they're going to make quite a revolution. And then at the PFAN Film Festival, where we saw this competition, I was one of the jury members, and we watched about 90 minutes of AI short films. Longest of them was 18 minutes, Snowfall, and the jury deliberated about 4 hours. So if we would have nothing to deliberate on, then probably we'd done in 15 minutes. But I think it's quite a good testament to the fact that there will be a lot of content produced by those tools that is going to be competitive at festivals and markets as well. And if anyone has tried out Notebook LM from Google, yeah, go try it out. Yes? Question? Yeah, so Notebook LM is a kind of an over-the-counter free of charge stuff. I recommend to put your script, or I think Javier had 2 years ago an idea of making podcasts out of legacy IP. This thing basically creates you in 4 minutes a full podcast with 2 people talking about your film production. I think in the film school, when last week we were talking about it, I actually created like a podcast in 4 minutes about industry insights. So that kind of stuff is happening like real time. Pretty crazy. So, and how it's going to look and what the platforms think. So I think this from CTO of Spotify, it's a very interesting quote, is, I do think that the catalog is going to explode. Then what does that mean? Well, it probably means that the recommendation problem becomes even more important because now it's even harder to keep track of everything that is uploaded. So again, how you're building the connection with your audience is going to be an absolutely essential. And what Spotify says is that we will have relationships with our AI avatars and large language models. I'm taking this with a little bit of grain of salt, but I think it gives a direction of the ambition where people want to go. So really ask yourself here, are you then aiming for scale or are you aiming for relevance? How are you relevant for your audience is going to be a question that we as Europeans need to ask ourselves frequently. So once again, infinite creativity, infinite distribution, but limited attention. And I really like a quote from Lynette Zaulich. She unfortunately couldn't be with here today, but she's one of the biggest experts on like kind of unscripted distribution. And what she said at South by Southwest is that we need to prepare from a technical perspective and prepare content in a way that it can be discovered. And she has a really great talk on basically going from a situation where nobody was calling to buy their series of unscripted, and she went to master every single platform, every single algorithm, every single tool to understand how they can self-distribute. And I think if bigger industry players are doing that, we need to pay attention to. So how is Europe doing? So the bird's eye view. Public financing system still quite healthy, but we will have challenges with the new European Commission. Well, year of elections. The cabinets are not yet being appointed, but this is all being negotiated right now. So, hey, talk and influence the policy. What is a really big problem is the fact that the European consumers very closely follow what happens in the US in terms of trends. But the problem is that we are already behind about 24 months in terms of access to platforms, access to technology, and access to the best media experiences. greatest bad example, Apple Intelligence released in the US. Who knows when it's going to be available for European customers? So we're going to get into situations where Trump is going to severely deregulate the tech and content industry. And those guys are kind of racing ahead in terms of what they will get access to streamers, content, and etc. All the big platforms are, of course, using AI already and developing their guidelines. And then maybe we're getting back into the age, remember where Netflix came out, where we all needed to VPN to US in order to watch like great stuff. Totally possible. We see that there is definitely less spend on entertainment. Public broadcasters are still in quite a good place because they have the audience. Streamers are actually contributing quite a lot to the market. Let's see, of course, how the Netflix lawsuit goes down. I think it's rather extraordinary that their headquarters in Amsterdam and Paris were raided. If you haven't seen the news, please read them. And what we've also found out, and I'm going to get to this, is that European young audiences love films, but hey, where exactly are they watching it? Are they watching them on the platforms where they are, or they're trying to navigate into this totally unnavigatable VOD platform where, you know, access, customer experience, and everything is quite clunky? So small markets. What have we seen in CresCine? So go grab this QR code if you haven't. This is our small markets report developed by our colleagues in Denmark and in Brussels and elsewhere. And in that report, you will get so many insights on how the markets are performing, where the films are traveling in terms of festivals, what genres are successful in the box office, and etc. You can spend like hours on this, and it helps you to make a lot of informed decisions on that. We have data there, how many fiction films are produced in CresCine markets. We have the data until 2022, but I think we're working to upgrade that into latest data as well. We're looking at co-production types. So if you want to look at what are majority co-productions and minority co-productions, that data is available as well. We have quite keen data on production and development funding, share of co-productions in the total production output, as well as the kind of a balance of the top 20 films in terms of the genres. I think this is very, very important to understand what you want to produce and how that might perform. The general takeaway from here is that if you are not Jacques Audiard, then don't produce a musical, because that's performing the least. But generally speaking, drama, comedy, family, and romance and genre films are quite unsurprisingly on the top of there. And that slide gives you a much more nuanced picture on how in different types of countries what the performance of the films are. So if you're aiming to produce a genre film, how is it doing in Croatia, Ireland, or elsewhere? And I think this is also very interesting data to look at how many films were nominated at festivals, and then how many of them actually got the awards back from there. So, for example, we've seen that Denmark has had 173 nominations, but only 41 wins. I think we're quite disappointed about that. Just kidding. But Ireland had 56 nominations and 9 wins, and it goes to look at different other types of countries as well. But the general conclusion from that small markets report is kind of self-obvious, but when you start thinking about it, not so. So what our amazing colleagues found out that one size really doesn't fit all. And each of those small markets are performing quite differently in terms of how films are being funded. What is the kind of the general drive in the industry? Is it the more cultural inclination? Is it the more export-focused inclination? Is it the more investment-focused inclination? And I think that that's a message, if you take the data and go talk to your stakeholders, like in some of those film industry policy discussions, it's always the thing that we want everything. We want festival wins, we want the films available on a streamer, we want to be successful in a domestic box office, and we want to be successful in an international box office, and then et cetera and et cetera. And the point basically is what our data shows, that it's not possible. A country can pick one or two avenues. You can be great in doing production service, but that doesn't necessarily mean that your domestic film industry in terms of domestic output or domestic storytelling will be great. You can do festival films, but again, that doesn't translate to streaming films and etc. So it's a kind of an industry discussion to figure out what exactly do you want to be good at. You can't win everything. And you know, in many of these places where we're kind of chipping money together from one funder to another funder and etc., you know, we all want to give them like this beautiful smorgasbord, but the reality is that you can't achieve it statistically. and go and have a look at the data and see what it tells, how each markets are performing. Audiences. We have a great audience persona tool coming up later at CresCine, but what our audience persona analysis has already shown that domestic audiences are quite acutely aware of the limitations. So the good point there is that they know that we have less budgets. But in many ways it's fine, because these are great domestic films. There's a lot of awareness variation across markets, and the key point there is that it's not the content anymore, but people just don't discover. So put it again back into that 7 hours where you have like 500 minutes of content going into YouTube and then all of the rest of the stuff out there. Like how much are you really investing in your discoverability and marketing? And that's not only just buying Facebook ads. Like your big problem is that, do you have a deal with a streamer? I see Katrin back in there. Like how can you negotiate your film on the front page of Jupiter? I don't know what that entails, but you can't. Great answer. Yeah, exactly. But no, seriously, but it's a problem. When a person is launching a streaming platform, is the film discoverable? Are Estonian films there? Are Portuguese films there? Are Danish films there? Because there's so much stuff, how can you find them, right? Relatable, locally relevant stories appeal to domestic audiences. And very important is actually friends recommending films to friends. So again, how are you discovering, how are you visible, and how are you kind of communicating to that? What we have coming up in CresCine later is that there are ongoing audience focus groups and audience personas. Manuel, when can we get access to those performers? 2 months. So when you see us in Berlin, you have a fantastic audience personas dashboard tool where you can start looking at more clearly. So, well, when we see that the world is very chaotic, finally, let's get to skills. That's my own kind of topic of passion. So, since we met here a year ago, we did an extended skill study with the European training programs. Thank you, everyone who kind of contributed to that. So, basically, we sent out a questionnaire to almost 13,000 professionals. We had about 1.2K total responses, and the response rate was 9%. So that means that nobody cares. But it's a bit of a joke, but at the same time, there is some type of a coherent and sad reality, because if our policy decisions are being made as we are, then if we have very low response rates, then it says a lot of things about a lot of things. It shows that maybe we are being overserved, maybe the discussions are not personalized enough, but it basically means that in many ways we have a passivity in terms of thinking about what types of skill sets we mean. And it's not a criticism, but it's an observation. And I think we have to really think about, how do we communicate, how do we have a discussion and very transparent discussion about what types of skills we need. So out of that skill study, you'll get the slides later. So mostly it was the producers who answered, then directors, screenwriters, journalists, festivals, institutions, cinematographers, actresses, and etc. So what do we already see from here actually is that we're not really addressing the service economy, or we're not addressing the below the line. And I think one of the big questions there is, in many ways, we can ask that perhaps we should have a much nuanced perspective on first of all, what exactly is an above the line and what is a below the line? Is an AI artist, highly skilled AI artist, above the line or a below the line? Or, is a virtual production producer who has been a former DOP and maybe a director, is that above the line or below the line? So we have to very critically start thinking about it, like, what are the skills that matter and what are the priorities there? And how actually we can include those people in the discussion, because ultimately they are the ones who are making the films. So mostly it was female respondents. Great. Some prefer not to answer. But this is, again, a really interesting slide. And it also tells quite a lot about the what I call around the response and dynamics in Europe. So most of the respondents came from France, Germany, Italy, Netherlands, Poland, Spain, Switzerland, Austria, Croatia. Well, Croatia was there, Denmark, and others. Where are small countries? Yeah. Well, not in metaverse, that's done already. But reality, do we have a voice? How do we want us to get represented about those big decisions? And maybe we should be more active on basically thinking what is our interest and how we can ourselves be represented. When we look at this, well, we had some CresCine markets responded, but they were just only a few people. So in many ways, go and what we are very keen to tell out to you, if you want to raise this discussion on the skills and the impact of your skills, come and talk to us. We really need to make this a priority. So, of course, unsurprisingly, 88% of people, of course, were ready to learn new skills, and that's not a very big news. But where do people learn their skills? Mostly at workshops and masterclasses, conferences, network festivals, book, magazine, trains, and then etc. So it also shows that we really haven't figured out how to train people on a scale and online. But at the same time, it's not impossible. Curious Refuge started their program a bit more than a year ago. They have trained 5,000 professionals with very high satisfaction ratio. So maybe the question is that the online is not bad, but we just don't know how to do it. Or we don't know how to do it right. How do we do this online training right? So where usually people, again, this is from a second study, where do they get their skills? Networking at festivals and markets, conferences and panels, peer-to-peer learning. I think, Mari, to your point on that peer-to-peer learning has been reflected quite a bit. Film institutes, associations, books, magazines, trains, and etc. And we all know that festivals and markets are struggling themselves. So again, how can we make this learning landscape more nuanced? Continuous professional training in all kinds of training programs is important, and we're kind of repeating again the same network. Training programs, networking at festivals and markets, conferences and panels. Again, those training opportunities are open just for what I would say, generally speaking, above the line. So where exactly is the below the line and how we're kind of including them in those networks remains a very big question. Trends, again, usual places. And the key topics, which are very important, and I think this is a bit of a scary slide personally for me. Why in 2024 we need to talk about funding system in Europe? What exactly we did in the past 30 years? I think in terms of like the reality, what the marketplace really is, and where we're kind of operating right now, I would probably have had expected some other types of priorities. So again, are we paying attention to what the environment are where we're releasing? That's an interesting question. And what we also see is that in many ways, people are relatively equipped for training in terms of financial opportunities and etc. But if you look at the kind of the highest scores on 9 and 8, which were like, I'm very confident or I'm very equipped for training, then we also see quite a big economic discrepancy. So last weekend in Denmark, we had the pleasure to converse with Angus Finney. He is a fantastic professor at the National Film School in London, now in Oxford, and has written one of the best books about the film industry. I was very proud to meet him because his book was essential to my master's and my PhD. But what Angus said, and he's been serving the UK film industry quite intimately, 75% of people are struggling in the UK film industry right now. So again, we have a big discrepancy between the correlation, what the market is, and what we kind of want or ought the things to be. And obviously, the financial security is there a big issue as well. We want to be more sustainable. We want to have more sustainable practices and sets, more sustainability training, policies, and as we're looking forward to do those pilots next year, understanding how to do sustainable co-production remains a big priority. Some other takeaways. Mostly people respondents in middle age, either managing positions or small company owners. But I think this is very interesting. And that was a quite interesting finding personally for me, that actually female executives prefer to have more digital skills, whereas the male respondents basically said they want to manage. So is it really about innovation and control? That's something that we can kind of hypothesize, but I think we see that, I think it's quite encouraging that, especially in the female segment, people want to understand how to make the digital things and digital competencies more part of their professional life. So what are the kind of the suggestions that we put out in a policy paper, and it has been published also this year, so you want to grab it, get it from the website. But generally speaking, let's prioritize this industry skills as a European topic. Right now, it's kind of relegated somewhere in the in other priorities around funding and etc. But maybe we really need to figure out what the skills are and have a concise conversation about it. And I think we need to talk more. If you want to contribute to the data, if you want to correlate with our data, get access to our data, let's collaborate more on that. So we certainly need to expand into the below the line, VFX and other segments, and also try to figure out how to address this industry insecurity and financial constraints, and also increase awareness of other training offerings which are not visible. Have to figure out how to support high-quality e-learning and digital skills, and also offer support. And those recommendations, by the way, went out to policymakers, that I think we should also have industry leaders and managers to be supported in order to engage with this skill topic. As I said before, on the markets, one size does not fit all, so each country is very different. Those small markets of ours are facing very tough decisions, what direction we should take. But we also would say is work with your strength. So if you're great at service production, do service production. If you're great at festivals, do festivals. Doesn't make sense to kind of even more stratify the resources what you have. Look into the future of what the data can tell you and work with the audience. If you don't engage the audience in various levels, the content production doesn't have any value. So where do we need your help in terms of our future roadmap? We're going to run greening and sustainability pilots. So we have analyzed almost every single greening and sustainability handbook in Europe with our colleagues in Denmark who are not here today. So we're going to develop some very pragmatic guidelines and tips out of that. If you want to kind of take those takeaways and have a little bit of pilot funding as well, come talk to us because we want to run those pilots with you. I'm personally focusing more on the skills and trying to expand that skill study and make it useful for you. And in 2025, we'll also have the FIDA, hopefully in spring or a little bit later, where we can start seeing financing correlations as well. And then just go and grab and test those findings out in your ecosystem. So thank you very much. That was about 15 minutes of pure sprint. If you want to get those findings, grab a QR code, and we hope to stay in touch with you. And our CresCine's colleagues are here. Go talk to them, and we'll see you very soon. Thank you.